So listen to this. Last month I put myself through the pain of debunking 25 of your worst football takes, all in a selfless act of public service for the benefits of humanity, of course. However, after witnessing such atrocities as Moh Salah is a better player than Ronaldinho because he won 4 golden boots, I was left in such a state of post-traumatic stress that according to my psychologist, the only thing that could save me is exposure therapy, so here we go. Listen. Using Salah's golden boots to downplay Ronaldinho is like using Drake's streams to downplay Mozart. And still, what makes this just sad for Salah is that even if you want to bring up numbers, which should be the argument in his favor, well, in his best season, he got 60 goal contributions in 52 games. In Ronaldinho's best season, stats-wise, he got 50 goal contributions, sure, less than Salah, but in just 45 games. Per game, it's a 3% difference. Do you think anyone on this planet would take an extra 3% more goals and assists in exchange for Ronaldinho's magic? Look, I'll do you a favor and I won't bring up national team football like you asked, but come on, did you actually bring up longevity by saying that at 33, Salah won every individual award in the Prem, while at 33, Ronaldinho was in Brazil? First, it seems pointless to bring up longevity when, in 2 years, Ronaldinho did for Barcelona what Salah needed 9 years to do for Liverpool. Second, do you have any idea what Ronaldinho was actually doing at 33? Look, I'll remind you. At 33, he joined an Atlético Mineiro team that had just finished 4 points off of relegation the year before. They were so bad, the rival fans would joke they couldn't even get 2,000 fans into their stadium. To say their stadium was half empty would be kind. Yet, he got there with the league season having already started and somehow 6 months later, they had just narrowly missed out on the title, taking 2nd place and qualifying for the Libertadores. Where, yeah, 4 goals and 10 assists in 14 matches to make them South American champions for the first time in their history. That's what Ronaldinho did at 33. They went behind 2-0 in both the quarters, the semis and the final, and he pulled them back every single time and got named South American Player of the Year. So, sure, Salah's Premier League campaign at 33 was incredible, but where was he everywhere else? In the Champions League, he couldn't even make it past the last 16. Maybe some of you completely disregard South American football, but if I had to choose between being Ronaldinho at 33 or Salah at 33, I wouldn't even think twice. That Ronaldinho era is legendary and one of my all-time favorite comeback stories in football. Next, Messi would flop in the Prem. Let me make this very clear. Messi has 27 goals in 36 games against English teams, and he has only ever played against the Big Six. I mean, imagine the things he could do to Leeds or Burnley. People will tell you that Messi couldn't do it in a cold, rainy night at Stoke. And I mean, sure, back in the Tony Pulis days, Stoke City were a demonic contraption. They literally made the grass on their pitch longer than regulation allowed, just so it was harder to move the ball around. They were peak anti-football. The man himself confessed to hate the sport. Wenger said they were a rugby team disguised as a football club. And Peter Crouch went as far as saying that he believes on a cold Wednesday, not even prime Barcelona could beat them. Which, given that Celtic was able to take 3 points off of them with the 11% possession, might not be completely crazy, but, well, at least when it comes to the weather, I gotta say, just earlier this year, Messi played in below freezing conditions, and despite trembling all game, he still scored the winner. Look, the closest thing you have to Stoke in La Liga is probably the terrorist organization that is Getafe. Right now, those guys have the 2nd worst offensive record in the country, and still, somehow, they're in 8th place. And, well, since Bordalás arrived at the club in 2016, Messi played him 7 times and only scored 3 goals compared to 14 in 13 games before him. So, yeah, some good old anti-football may be Messi's kryptonite, but that's the same for every other player, and the same way not every team in La Liga plays like Getafe, not every team in the Premier League plays like Stoke either. I guarantee you Bielsa's Leeds or every recent Brighton squad would fall into the trap of trying to play one-on-one against them and get completely decimated. Plus, they always say that La Liga players struggle to adapt to the Premier League, but what about Fernando Torres, Juan Mata, Cesc Fábregas, David Silva, Sergio Agüero? Which leads me to another point. Especially if you were to move into Guardiola's Man City, there is no way that wouldn't play out horrendously for every other team in the league. Come on, I feel like a lot of people only say this because they can't even imagine him playing outside Barcelona, and I know, his time at PSG didn't exactly help anyone fight this narrative. Now people feel legitimized because he only scored 6 league goals in his first season, and at the ultras demanding he got kicked out of the club. But, well, he still had 66 goal contributions in 75 matches, and that was a 34-year-old Messi. Imagine what he could do in his prime. Yeah. Next, Sir Alex Ferguson's Man United probably wouldn't be quite as successful as they were back then in today's Premier League. What does that even mean? What is Sir Alex Ferguson's Man United? The treble-winning squad? The one that repeated the Premier League? What era is this? The man was at the club for 26 years. Is this some hypothetical time machine scenario where one of those teams gets transported into the present season? Or some scenario where he never left the club and is still managing them somehow? Look, if it's the time machine scenario, yeah, maybe those 90s teams would be a bit overwhelmed in this world of systematic, robotic counter-pressing or whatever you want to call it. But even that 08 squad, nah. There's no way teams today would just suddenly be able to stop those counterattacks. Had Ronaldo and Tevez never left, they would have still dominated for much longer. In fact, you want to know what's worse? They still did. They lost 2 of the best players on the planet, regrouped, and 2 years later they were back in the Champions League final. You know, people act like Ferguson was some dinosaur because he was at the wheel for so long, but that should be proof he wasn't. The only way you can stay in charge of one of the biggest clubs on the planet for so long and consistently deliver results is if you're adaptable. Even in his last year, the man managed to win the league with the likes of Rafael, Welbeck and Valencia playing 40 games a season. Now, if in your scenario Ferguson has remained at United until this day and somehow allowed whatever has been going on at that club to happen, yeah, sure, not even Napoleon could steer those men towards victory. Next. Harry Kane deserved the Ballon d'Or in 2021 more than Lewandowski. Hate me all you want, but he got the Golden Boot and the most assists in the Premier League, which is the best league, let's be real. Premier League, Premier League, Premier League. But yeah, look. You say he got the Golden Boot and the most assists, and that's a valid achievement, very impressive and all, but man, in total, he only had 7 goal contributions more than Bruno Fernandes. And it's not like he was anywhere near the Ballon d'Or, was he? The record for most goal contributions in a Premier League season is 47. Kane only got 37. It was just lucky that they were split perfectly between goals and assists in the only way that could get him both awards. It's not like it was such an ungodly performance that you can completely ignore the fact that he finished 7th and went completely trophyless. But wait, because what I find even funnier about this take is that you're for sure mixing up seasons and calendar years. Because Kane started the 2021 season really well, but finished off not so strong, and then started the next one pretty poorly, meaning that in the 2021 calendar year, he only got 28 goals. All year, 28 goals as a striker. That's not so good. And you want him to win the Ballon d'Or over Lewandowski. There's a reason Kane finished 23rd and Lewandowski almost won it. It's the fact he scored more than twice as many goals as Kane. Next. My older brother's friend said Neuer is only considered world-class because he plays in the Bundesliga, and even Juan Garcia is a better goalkeeper than him. I mean, he literally has the record for the most clean sheets in the Champions League, and won a Golden Glove at the end of a victorious World Cup campaign, so how could anyone possibly think that he only performs in the Bundesliga? And as for the claim that Neuer is only good because of the invention of the back pass rule, it's like I said in my video about him, sure, Neuer literally changed the way football is played. Any goalkeeper that comes after him is simply a disciple of the church of Manuel Neuer. But regardless of all of that, in this generation, aside from Ronaldo and Messi, there isn't a single other player who has even come close to being as dominant in his own position as Neuer has been as a goalkeeper. Even if you stopped him from using his feet, he is still an incredible shot stopper. In the modern era, from what I've seen, only Buffon and Oblak have conceded fewer goals per game than him. And don't use the fact that he played almost his entire career for Bayern because, again, Golden Glove at a World Cup, And worse, he played 6 seasons for Schalke and was just absurd. At 20 years old, Schalke was forced to play him after an injury crisis took out every single one of their keepers, and he was so good, their main keeper never played another Bundesliga match for Schalke. They went from 1.57 goals conceded per game to 0.77 with one change to their starting 11. Only a year later, he was already being nominated to UEFA Goalkeeper of the Year, and he refused to leave for Bayern no matter how hard they pushed for him, until he brought Schalke their first trophy in almost a decade. I always find it funny how so many of these takes could be avoided if people just knew a little bit more about the players aside from whatever they were doing at their prime. In fact, do you want to know what's my biggest pet peeve when it comes to football discourse? I hate when people are discussing whether or not you had to be a footballer first in order to be a top manager, and then someone says, "Oh, Mourinho never played football." Yes, he did. I don't know where that rumor started, but I can tell you a quick search will show you that he played for 5 clubs before quitting to become a manager. And not only were 2 of them first division clubs, but while playing for Ballon, who, by the way, at one point won the league, so, you know, a serious club. He literally got subbed into a Portuguese Cup match at halftime and scored a hat-trick. Okay, good. I'm done with my rant. Next. Mitrovic would have been a top 5 striker in the world if he played for a top 6 team in the Prem. So, I will unfortunately have to allow this one. I mean, top 5 striker in the world is probably a bit too much, but goddamn do I wish we had seen Mitrovic play for a proper club. This guy was like a budget Haaland. He absolutely dominated the championship. The goal-scoring record had been set at 31 since the rebrand, and he went and dropped 43 goals. You'd have to go back to the 1950s to find another tally like that, and worse. Then they got promoted, and in his only ever Premier League season playing for a team that did not get relegated, despite an ankle injury messing him up all season, he immediately averaged more goals per 90 than Moh Salah. But well, instead of looking for a move to a top team, then Al Hilal offered to quintuple his salary, so of course he took it. But even then, he pulled up to the Saudi Pro League and went goal for goal with CR7 himself. 47 goal contributions in 43 games. You can say whatever you want about the quality of the league, but even Benzema wasn't pulling those numbers, so I'll allow this one. Next. Nostalgia bias is worse than recency bias. Look, let's do a count and let your comments decide for us, okay? If Maradona was in today's game, he would have 100 goal contributions a season. Rice is better than Gerrard. Mbappe is better than Henry. Saint-Maximin is a more complete player than Henry. In the 90s, Wan-Bissaka would have been seen as one of the greatest defenders of all time. Zidane is overrated and Saka is better than Beckham. Szoboszlai is miles ahead of Zidane. Gavi is better than Iniesta and Zidane. Garnacho is better than a young CR7. Mateus Cunha over Kaká. Declan Rice is 1,000 times better than Busquets. Kaká was just a budget João Felix. Shea Adams is better than Bobby Charlton. A random team full of non-league players in this era would beat the likes of Pele. Lee Trundle is better than Pele. You could put Scott McTominay back in Pele's era and he'd be one of the best players of all time. And my personal favorite, Zidane is mid. He had no competition when he won his Ballon d'Or. Ronaldo, Baggio, Del Piero, Batistuta, Weah, Raul, Figo, Bergkamp, Beckham, Owen, Laudrup, Rivaldo, Nedved, Henry, Shevchenko, Ronaldinho, Van Nistelrooy, Totti. Yeah, maybe if you're watching a match with your father, the nostalgia can get on your nerves a bit, but these kids online, they're a different breed. Now, some extra takes for the road. The UCL is not the most accurate measurement for how big a club is, or at least it should matter in which era they won it. Let me guess, an Arsenal fan? Next. Juve's invincible season is more impressive than Arsenal's invincible season. That's just a battle of the mid, as the kids say. Leverkusen are the ones who did it the best. Neymar isn't even in the top 10 football players of all time list. He really isn't. Next. The best goal in football is a tap-in. Well, a team that can create a lot of tap-in situations is a team that wins consistently. A team who scores a lot of screamers is a team who relies on miracles to get a win, so I get what you mean. Next, JJ Okocha is the reason Ronaldinho and Neymar Jr. exist. Look, the legend is fun and all, but let's be real. By the time Ronaldinho met Okocha, he already had 115 professional matches under his belt. The man had been terrorizing defenses for years. Next, Lukaku is one of the top strikers of this generation, but gets extremely disrespected. Well, he didn't make it easy on himself, did he? Next, Real Madrid is the team we know just because of luck. Brother, do you know how hard it is to get lucky 14 times? Next, Prime Podence was the best dribbler in the Prem.